All right. I apologize. Didn't mean to do that. Notice is hereby given that the Salem School Committee is holding a regular school committee meeting of March 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in person at 29 Highland Avenue, room 227. You can also join via Zoom. The link is in the meeting agenda. Our first item of business is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Seconded.
Motion made by Member Cornell, seconded by Member Campbell. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the matter carries. All right. Public comment. The Salem School Committee would like to hear from the public on issues that affect the school district and are within the scope of the committee's responsibilities. Spanish interpretation is available for anyone who needs it. The members of the school committee would like to remind the public that Salem Public School students regularly attend school committee meetings. We encourage all meeting participants to model respectful and productive public discourse for our young learners. Is there any public comment in the room?
Hi, everybody. Ben Chertok, the coordinator of music for Salem. Happy Music in Our Schools Month, amongst other things going on. I know every month seems to have something, but March is Music in Our Schools Month. And if you've seen our calendar, you would know that March is extremely busy for us. Our high school groups have been out and about competing all over the state. We were in Salem, New Hampshire this past weekend. Very proud to report our percussion ensemble is doing phenomenal. They were actually just promoted into a new class and are very, very competitive in their new class. Right now they're in second place in their division, which is fantastic. Our junior color guard, which is made up of 4th through 7th graders across the district, is continuing to grow. They received a silver medal this past weekend. And our senior color guard, which is actually grades 7 through 12, 7th grade is a little bit of a transition year, is currently in first place in their division, prepping for their championships on March 29th. Actually right here at Salem High School. We're very fortunate that we get to host several facilities and they get several home shows. So if you're around on the 29th, please come out and join us. I believe they're on, the juniors are on at like 11:30 something in the morning, 38. Yeah, they're very specific intervals and they yell at us to get out of there once we're done. So 11:38 for the juniors and I believe 3:30 for the senior color guard. We hope you'll come out and support. This week is Tech Week. Actually, Miss Tucker and I were just downstairs wrapping up rehearsal for Frozen Junior. That's this weekend, Thursday, Friday at 7 and Saturday at 2. And then next week is something new for us. We've moved our all-city concerts out of sort of the MCAS mayhem. We've moved them back into March to celebrate Music in Our Schools Month, so we're going to try that out this year. Next Wednesday night at the high school at 6:30 is our all-city chorus concert, grades 4 through 12, and then at 7:30 is a new addition. We have a small ensemble and jazz evening featuring the jazz bands at Collins Saltonstall and the high school, along with the brass ensemble and the flute ensemble. And then the next evening is our band and orchestra hoopla in the field house at 6:30 for the band and 7:30 in the auditorium for the orchestra. And then April 1st we sleep. So, and I will sign in. So I hope you're able to come out and support us. The kids have been working hard. Certainly want to shout out all of the music teachers and staff that have been guiding the students and hope to see you around.
Can I just ask Ben a question? Am I allowed to?
Typically do public comment is not a dialogue with the members.
It's a date question.
A clarification of a date?
So I could have said something wrong.
I'm going to ask my question, which is, did you email that to us about the 29th? I know you emailed us a couple of things.
I think the 29th is on that list of big dates that are on there. So
thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
And if it's not, I'll email you when I get home.
Andy just said I was out of order.
Any other comment?
Yeah, I had a question, but
Here we go.
I just want to thank Ben Chertok for his. Did I lose something here?
Mike came apart.
Okay, it's somewhere here. All right, I just want to thank Ben for his leadership and the work he's done with the group this year. He's done a fabulous job. So I just want to commend Ben. It's been a pleasure seeing the growth and continued evolution of our music programs under his leadership. So thank you.
Is there any? Is there any comment online? Nope. All right, seeing none. We have approval of the consent agenda. These are the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of March 3rd, the special school committee meeting of March 11th, approval of a field trip to Brewer, Maine for the high school music department,
Move to approve.
and approval of the warrants of March 6th and March 13th.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Motion made by Member Cruz, seconded by Member Campbell.
I don't have it open in front of me here yet. Where is the field trip in Maine? Where are they going?
It's not the music.
not the music
department.
program.
No, it's
Yeah,
the
this is
volleyball
wrong.
team.
But where did you say they're going to?
Brewer, Maine.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And this, I'll note in the consent agenda, it says the high school music department, but it is the volleyball program.
We
Oh,
do
that's
have
why
A-
Angie's here.
That's why Angie's here.
That makes
question.
sense.
Coach
Now we
Jane.
know.
Motion has been made. Any further discussion? Not. All in favor of approval? Any opposed? Seeing none, the matter carries. Student representatives report.
Good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, I was not able to meet last week due to illness. I was sick, but thank goodness I've recovered now. But today we met and we talked about announcing like Monday crew meetings on the announcements, and we also talked about and having on the TVs around the school we would post what was on the announcements that were announced today. That way, people who might have missed announcements or come in late can still see the announcements in the school, because there is a large amount of TVs and they have been being used. But in the group today, we were just talking about things that we could do to help with people who might just be tardy and have missed something. So that's all we talked about.
Any questions for Mark? Nope. All right, we'll move on to superintendent's report.
All right, thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll get into the meat of the agenda. I just want to share that the Collins musical is this week, Thursday, March 20th, Friday, March 21st, both at 7 o'clock, and then Saturday matinee at 2 o'clock. It is Frozen Junior. Looking forward to it. A lot of talent amongst our students, and we've been sharing on social media and different places where you can buy tickets, $8 for adults and $5 for students and senior citizens. I do want to share the good news that Salem Public Schools has been two efforts around teacher diversification. We did receive the teacher diversification grant from the Department of Ed again this year. I think we got maybe 3/4 of what our asks were, specifically around incentives for tuition reimbursement, for additional tuition reimbursement, and also relocation funds as well. And then we also got accepted into the registered teacher apprenticeship grant that the state has for looking at the creating an apprenticeship model, which we're in the exploratory phase with Salem State of what that would look like. But those are two areas that we've just received notification around, so that's exciting. And you'll see from my goals tonight that one of my goals is to try to organize our district better around our recruitment pipelines into the district. So you'll see that in my goals later tonight. I also want to share that very exciting that we have a new video remote interpretation opportunity that started this week. Through a grant, we were able to purchase devices, iPads, to provide live video interpretation through our Lion Bridge vendor at each of the schools and departments, so that they can not only have, beyond just the phone, they can use iPads to have live conversations with interpreters in predominantly in languages that we don't offer translation and translation. I also want to note that next week is the walkthrough for the Bentley Dual Language Program with the school committee. It's on March 25th from 8 to 9:30. If you haven't RSVP'd and you would like to attend, Bentley would love to see you there. I know we have a number of members who are able to attend. And we will also, and I think Margaret will speak to this, we also want to have site visits to other high schools for the school committee to visit. So that'll be the next iteration of visits. We want you to see other high schools, get a mental model, what they could look like. And so we'll be organizing through Shirley opportunities for school committee members to visit as well. So with that, we can go into the agenda for the evening. So the big update, I'm going to do my goals at the end. What's that?
Member
Yes.
Campbell?
Sorry,
Yes,
since
sure.
you're segueing somewhere else, did you say that we were accepted into the registered teacher? Awesome. That's
Yes, we
exciting.
were.
Okay.
Yes. That's my understanding, Laura, right? I'm correct on that? Yes, thank you. I don't want to be giving false information out there and just making up stories, but I believe that we were accepted. So the main topic for today is the School Building Authority update. We promised that we'd last meeting that we were going to come back to share some revisions to the education plan, the space summary, and then we also have some new MSBA items, which is our ongoing acceleration repair of buildings, which we'll get to after. But if we could, we have Margaret Wood, who's our project manager here. We have Kim Carter, who works on her team. Are we waiting for somebody else, Margaret? Or okay. And we also have Glenn Burns here as well. Since our last meeting, a lot of work has been done around the education plan and the space summary. You have copies in front of you, and Margaret, I guess I'll let you orient folks to what they have in front of them. So if you want to come up to the mic.
So, Dr. Steik, how much time do you want to take for this, for my share of this? Because I want to not overextend my time.
I think,
As you say,
know,
there's a lot.
10, 15 minutes,
10,
and
15
then
minutes.
give them an opportunity to ask questions, and then.
Great. All right, so for context, sort of taking you back to when I first met you all in October, I think. So we did make, on time, the submission of what's called the preliminary design program to the MSBA. It's the first step in meeting their funding requirements. I call the submission the due diligence submission. It's over 4,000 pages long. We're going to get it. Chris and I were just talking about how we're going to sort of get it posted, because I consider it a public document. But the part of it that is the school committee part of it is the educational program, and as it relates to that, the space summary. So you have a bunch of documents before you. I'm just going to talk about a couple of them and then ask questions about a couple of them. So I believe Shirley gave you all a copy of the table of contents so that you can sort of see, like, this is, again, this is a piece of the due diligence. We're not going to talk about that tonight unless you have questions. You should have a copy of the educational program, which was in pretty good shape when we came a couple of weeks ago. We kind of tweaked it and spent some time aligning it to make sure that what was in the space summary, if it was in the space summary, it was in the ed program and vice versa. Added some additional language. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. You should also have a copy of a different version of this gigantic pages and pages document that you need a magnifying glass to read. I'm also not going to really talk about this. What I do want to talk about a little bit are two things. So one is the variance document, which I think is useful. It's a requirement of the submission. It's a couple of pages of material. Do you have the variance document? Nope.
That's in your packet. That was in your packet, the variance document.
Yeah.
And so wasn't the table of contents. Yeah.
Okay. So what's useful about the variance document is that it's just a couple of pages. It's in 12-point script type, and it goes through piece by piece the places in which we differed from the MSBA template. I think sometimes folks come to this process thinking that the template is the model for this. No, the template is the model for equity across the state that the MSBA uses. They recognize that every district is different, but they use it as a way of establishing standards for what they will reimburse on. So in this case, we think best guess right now, the city will get approximately 50%, maybe a little less than 50% reimbursement on every square foot of space that is within the template. And so it's important for you all to understand that some things are outside the template. So in some cases, and the big categories that are outside the template are special education, which the MSBA understands is really unique to each district, and they don't attempt to template it, not least of all because the more high needs your district, the more you need the reimbursement. The second area is CTE, Career and Technology Education, and that's because these programs are actually, I would say, changing pretty quickly and evolving, and they have not yet come up with a template. So you have big chunks of space that are excluded in both of those categories. So if you all, do folks have it sounds like you all don't have a hard copy of the variance document.
It's in there, it's
In the packet.
Electronically in their packet,
So
yep.
I'm not going to go through this piece by piece, not least of all because I don't have a hard copy of it in front of me either. But I will sort of hit the highlights. So I'm just going to go category by category. So on their core academic space, you're a little bit over. We have recommended to the district that they do a utilization study because we think the MSBA will come back and ask that question. But you're very close on that. Art and music, you are over, the MSBA template is 6,700 square feet, and we are at 14. Now that's driven by parts of what you just heard from Ben. So Salem has a very robust music and performing arts program. So there are pieces of that where we've got more classrooms than the MSBA's limited amount. Let's see, health and PE, the MSBA reimburses on 21,800. We have 13,860. I think on that one, we don't know yet whether it's going to be new construction or renovation. We're looking at options that would preserve the field house, but we did decide that even if we built a new building, this program needs a gym of an equivalent size. So the current field house accommodates 3 side-by-side basketball courts, a new gym, if that option is selected by the school committee, by the building committee, would be approximately the same size. So that's a big chunk of that because the MSBA, I'm not going to say, I don't want to use the word stingy because that sounds negative. That has a negative connotation. But their reimbursement, the area that they define as reimbursable, is kind of smaller than most high schools would want of this size. The media center is very close to the MSBA template. Auditorium and drama, we talked about a little bit last time. Where we landed, we did a lot of talking to various folks, various staff at the school, as well as other consultants. And we landed with, in this, what the building committee voted on, we landed on an auditorium that is pretty much at the MSBA standard, which seats, I'm going to show you a couple pictures of similar spaces. Your current auditorium seats on risers 635 people. The one that we are proposing would seat 690, but it would not have the flat area that you all are familiar with that's between the stage and the seating. The comments that we heard about this were, first of all, several people spoke up in favor of focusing on, as long as the auditorium wasn't smaller than the proposed, focusing on making an auditorium that was ideal for educational purposes. And therefore, the idea was to make an auditorium that seated at least as many folks as you have, brought the stage forward, allowed it to be a really sort of functional stage and auditorium in the way it's not, and then to provide other spaces for other kinds of activities. So we have kept in, at least for the moment, a black box space, which would give a lot of flexibility for both music and drama, as well as other activities in the school. And then there are also spaces for chorus, specific spaces for chorus and other types of music. So that area is over, it's not quite double, but the MSBA template would give us 9,500 square feet, and we're at 16,700. Dining and food service, sorry?
There's a question here.
Mary?
Yeah, when you talked about, several people spoke up and said that as long as the space wasn't smaller than 6, whatever. So I
6:30.
forget exactly how you put it, but something above it. Maybe I missed, you might have said at the beginning, where were these several people coming from? Because I didn't hear anybody here
Okay.
say that.
No.
So where?
So we have, there's a couple different places. So this is from, we have a design working group, which has 4 members of the building committee on it. Rick Jones, Paul Vichica, Betsy Ricciarelli, and Matt Formica. So we've been meeting with them. In particular, I would say Paul Vichica professionally is someone who has worked on a lot of schools and specifically on auditoriums and performing arts spaces. And I think his voice was the strongest in saying you should really be thinking of the space in terms of its being a primary educational use and making it work for that. We also talked to folks at the school, including the principal, and Ben was definitely a big part of that discussion as well. So I think that was it. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay. Admin and guidance, we have a little bit of additional space, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the ways we're going to configure it to make it different than the kind of spaces we have now. We're over on custodial and maintenance, but the MSBA template is very limited. And then we have some additional spaces that are outside of the program that you have already, including the school store, the clothing connection, the JROTC spaces, and North Shore Health. So we understood from our meetings with folks that those are things that you have, and those are things that you need to continue. So that's kind of the big picture of where we landed. Any other questions about that? Okay. So the last thing, and this is probably the most entertaining, is this handout.
Margaret, do you just want to, can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
For one? Do you want to say, I mean, we still have work to do still on the CTE spaces. I don't know if you,
Yes.
we're going to get into that. Because we do, our CTE spaces seem to be larger than what comparable schools might have. So we need to do some due diligence around those spaces. And we do have a lot of classroom spaces in our proposal that, and Glenn and I did work on trimming that down. Based on the number of kids projected, we are still probably over on classroom spaces. So we have to look, we have to continue to look at what's absolutely needed. We obviously want to err a little bit on the side of having some flexibility.
Yeah.
Because obviously we want to we believe that the numbers of kids will go up and we don't want to be stuck with a crowded school, but we also have to be judicious in looking at those spaces. So there's still work to be done. And that's, you know, Glenn and I were looking, or Glenn was really looking at the schedule, trying to figure out how many classes, for example, how many science classes during one period of time would be necessary, so that we're, you know, as much as, right now we're operating in a much larger building than what we need. And so people are used to having a lot of space because you have a building that was intended to fit close to 2,000 kids. And so we all have to adjust a little bit, and we're struggling to adjust to the fact that the reality is we have fewer students any way you slice it than when Salem High was built. And so, and we don't have unlimited funds to build this, you know, monstrosity of a building with just extra space. So that's the kind of work that still needs to be done. We've gotten closer to it, I think is fair to say, but we're not all the way there.
We took about 35,000 square feet out of the program since the last time we saw you. And it was a very collegial, collaborative effort of like just moving pieces around, making sure that anything that could be reimbursed was in the reimbursable category. So, but there is more work to do there. And I think the square footage of the building drives the cost of the building. It's the single biggest driver. So if you shrink the square footage, you shrink the cost to the taxpayers. And I think that's really important because at the end of the day, you want to have people come out and support the project. The other thing that you shrink when you shrink the building is the operating cost, because you're shrinking the amount of energy that you need to operate the building, the number of people you need to maintain the building, all of those things.
I just had a question on the line of the CTE programs. So I understand that we're wanting to do more due diligence, Dr. Zreich. There's not a lot of comprehensive high schools that offer CTE programs. The vision for a lot of those programs is really narrow. So is your thinking that we would go and look at some of the regional voc techs to see what they're offering for programming? I think, as we know, CVTE has really, in the regional voc techs, they've really got a lot of innovative programs that are tied to direct labor needs, and they're building their builds out based on future of workforce. So I just want to make sure that we have like an expansive view as we think about CVT and what we offer, because it is the kids are voting with their feet with respect to engaging in those programs, and our regional voc tech neighbors and competitors are definitely they're at the cutting edge of those types of facilities. So I just want to make sure that that's the thinking, is that we would go out and learn from those models, rather than just like the few comprehensive high schools that still have like the CVTE offerings.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news is, because of Mario's leadership and Glenn's leadership, there has been a lot of discussion about, we've expanded already some of the shops that we offer, in it, we got approved for that. We're limited by what we can expand to, because if the regional vocational has certain programs, we can't offer duplicative programs.
Unless they
unless they agree to it. But I think we've added the graphics design, we've added carpentry,
Welding.
welding, and metal fab is in there
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, welding metal fab is the new one that we're projecting, that will support many of our other programs that we currently have.
Yeah, thank you. I would just name that the current number of seats that we're offering with our regional voc tech is very limited compared to the number of students that are taking those courses at Salem High, and it seems like there's been some openness with the relationship with Essex Tech on things like duplication. So that's where I'm coming from, is I would rather know that hundreds of students have access here in Salem than just a portion of the student body that are going.
Yeah, I'm not sure we would be approved for anything more than what we already have, because we are projecting almost 3/4 of the student population to be in CTE programs. So I'm not, I think we've expanded to the extent that we possibly can, unless our enrollment goes way up. We have no waiting lists in our programs. There aren't kids, we're fortunate that we've been able to, we've really done the expansion over the last 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And so heading into the new building, I'm not sure we could request more than what we already have. In terms of spaces, I think the question is, like, some of the spaces are significantly bigger than even some of the regional vocational spaces are, and that does add to the total cost. And so, like, it was helpful for Paul, who's a Salem resident, is on the building committee, to walk the space with Margaret and I and say, do you really need like triple the amount of space that you have right now? And it was helpful to get that perspective. I mean, he's done this work. So it's not about, we don't want to, we're not looking to compromise or shortchange the spaces.
Right.
I think we need to right size just a little bit.
Yeah, I would say the process that we need to go through right now is to actually lay out the spaces. So, the MSBA has a templated size for a standard classroom, and it's between 850 and 900 square feet. And if you're teaching in a core academic space, you're going to have somewhere between 25 and 28 kids in the room, and that works just fine. These are different because the activity that's going on in every room is different, and you literally have to lay out the space for the technical use to figure out what size it is. We have not done that work yet.
Okay.
So that we're not trying to shrink them. We're trying to understand whether the numbers, the guesstimates that were put in here for areas are the right estimates.
And I think we have to have more conversations with the teachers themselves in
Exactly.
the spaces. It was very helpful to talk to the electrical teacher the day that we were there, to talk to the construction cluster teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the we need to do more of that.
Yeah.
So we understand better how to utilize and design those spaces to be effective.
My
The
la-
other thing, I just want, sorry to interrupt, I just want to add, so Perkins and Will, who's the design lead, actually has a kind of national reputation for these kinds of spaces. So we're looking, by having them on the team, and they will be, the plan is to bring in, have sort of a half-day event where we meet with the teachers for these areas independently, do layouts of the spaces, have experts and say, have you tried this, have you tried that? So we want to bring in the perspective of what folks are doing in other schools. But it's definitely not about, shrinking the spaces, it's about right-sizing them.
Yeah, that understood on my part, and thank you for that. I guess my last question on this, Dr. Strike, is you mentioned that there's no wait list for the programs at Salem High School. Would you just be able to, as a follow-up for the committee, give us a sense of what the wait list is for Essex Tech for all Salem students that apply, not just those that are in our public system, but even in some of those competitor districts that are within Salem, and then and just the total wait list at Essex Tech? I'd just like to have a sense of that as we continue to
Yep,
move forward.
absolutely.
Thanks.
Member Manning?
Yeah, when you say that the current square footage that the state looks at is for a regular classroom, 900 to 850 to 900, is there a different size for the middle school?
Yes, it's smaller. I couldn't tell you what it is off the top
It's
of my head.
750.
But it's definitely sized, it's about the body size.
Yep, because
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't know if it was 750 just because it's a middle school or because.
I'm guessing it's 750 to 800,
The
but I
time, yeah, but
don't know off the
because
top
the
of my head.
old rooms here are 900 and the addition is 750.
And we found at the high school,
So, I didn't
the
know.
rooms are either 715 or 850.
Yeah,
And that tells you that the high school classrooms now are undersized, which is one of the very first things that made my ears perk up in the public meetings, was the teacher came and said, our classrooms are too small.
yeah. Thank you. I had one other question. So back to the auditorium. So can you just tell me like what the next step is on that? Because you, and I don't mean you personally, but the presentation was for 690 or whatever. Then we raised some concerns from a more of a broader city perspective, I think. So then now you've come back and said like the design team, and in particular, and I forget the gentleman's last name, but Paul.
Oh, Paul Vachica.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who I, have no doubt, I don't know him, but I have no reason to think he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that the high school wanted was talking about I guess everyone's that I'm talking about so far, that I've mentioned just now, is looking at it from just the school perspective. And I get that, because when I was doing that at my school, I was looking at it from the school perspective.
Absolutely.
And I would, surprisingly or not, be quite vicious in going after folks who wanted to take something away. But I guess I'm curious about what the step is for this, because the topic that I'm concerned about, and I think some of us were concerned about, wasn't just the school topic. It's the city's
Right.
only gathering place.
Yep.
So my concern is that issue's been raised. Now does the 4-person design team who specialize in designing schools, where does the decision come from now? Because they're looking at it from a totally different perspective, I think, than some of us are. So,
So let me say, so we presented this to the building committee, and they have voted on it. We went around and asked various folks about whether there were ever events that filled up both the flat seating and the riser seating. We didn't hear that that's a common occurrence at all. And I think it might have been Rick who said to me today that you don't design an auditorium for a once-a-year use. I mean, that's why the MSBA pushes on this, to sort of keep it smaller, because the MSBA has a situation where a lot of communities want to build an auditorium for their town meeting, right? I mean, imagine Framingham, when Framingham was a city, wanting to build an auditorium for town meeting. So they want it to be for educational purposes. And it was helpful to me when I was listening to all these discussions to hear that. I want to let's take a look at this briefly, because I don't want to overstay my time here, and I'm going to kind of go backwards through this. Because I put together, well, Perkins and Will put together, at Dr. Zreich's request, 100 aspirational photographs of spaces, which I've asked Shirley to share with you. And I could not print in today 100 full bleed pages. So I pulled out images around that were of the issues that particularly came up in the ed programming discussion. So if we just sort of start, I'm not going to talk to each of these, but I'm going to just say that every page here represents a discussion that was part of the ed program and the space summary. So the first page is small learning environments, which are something that you don't have now, but which are built into this program. So it's the ability to take a couple of kids or a small group of kids outside but adjacent to a classroom and do work. The next page shows 4 images. They're kind of side by side, just showing what we heard a lot about flexibility. So this is the same space opened up. This is the same space opened up. So that kind of thinking about how you could go from having a smaller room to a bigger room was something we got a lot of feedback on. The next page is kind of the same. It's allowing indoor space to open up to outdoor space and using corridor space as teaching and learning space. The next page is a series of pictures of the kinds of maker spaces that we heard that the school community was interested in. Then there is a page of shared, kind of what the sort of current word is commons, like a shared commons for teaching and learning or collaboration. The next page shows some smaller spaces for teacher collaboration and team projects. Again, we put these together as aspirational photographs, so things we heard about. There are a few spaces of recreation, but I think the one I want to point you to, then there's a page on performing arts. So a couple of pictures of a black box, if folks have not seen one. Picture of a performing arts space that's about the square footage of the one that we've included. But on this page, almost at the end, with the big purple photograph, these 2 images on the right are images of 2 auditorium that are the same. So you go almost the end. Look for the purple one down in the corner. Okay, everybody there? These 2 pictures are, I want to say this, the one on the top is Belmont, and the one on the bottom is Stoneham, I believe. I think I've got that right. So these are 2 auditoriums of the size that we are talking about. They were both designed to the MSBA template. They both seat 690 students. And we do have the ability to go see them. So back to what the superintendent was mentioning at the beginning, I think it would be great for folks to go see it. The last page here then shows some visual art spaces. So again, I asked Shirley to send the link with all of the images, because it's a huge file if you want to see these up close. But Mary, back to your point, this is the recommendation that we made to the building committee, and they voted on that on the 13th? No, it was the week before. My brain is going soggy. But anyway, the building committee has voted to recommend this as the space summary. So what is in here is based on the 690 student seating. But we've also included the black box.
Thank you.
Just I think there had been some healthy discussion too about the black box versus, at one point it was out, but there was interest on the part of the principal and the music program to have it. I think it would be difficult to do both, right, in terms of space.
Yeah, you would have to. You could
Yeah.
make a much bigger auditorium, but you'd end up having to lose the black box.
Right, which I think it's a compelling feature to have in a school. and it allows for more flexibility
Yeah.
at the school level. But there was a lot of healthy back and forth about this, including with the staff at the school level about this. I think from the purposes of the school, the conversation was we didn't need a bigger a bigger auditorium. The conversation about the city, that's not for the schools to decide. If the city wanted to have a bigger space, that's for the city to decide. But I think from the purpose of the school, they'd rather have the smaller, it's not a smaller auditorium, but the regular size auditorium, and have a black box that allows for some pretty unique experiences for kids. So.
Yeah, and again, I couldn't find anyone that could tell me that there's ever been a situation where the 635 seats have all been filled for an event. So that helped me think about it as, well, we're at a number now that works for the current school. We're increasing it a bit, and that is in recognition of the fact that we expect the high school enrollment is going to continue to increase in the near term, so. Did that answer your question?
Good.
Okay.
Member Cornell?
I apologize because I wasn't at the building committee meeting last time, but just looking at these, this is like a very specific question, but it just struck me. Is it less expensive to have glass interior walls? Is that why there are so many in the design?
No.
I'm just wondering if the teachers noted it at all, because I have taught in a Perkins and Will designed fancy new building, and teaching in a fishbowl is not always easy, because
Yeah.
even I get very distracted as I'm teaching. So I'm just curious if anybody has mentioned that, because it's not my favorite as a teacher.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there.
So I think nobody's commented on that issue, but I believe they will, first of all, and I agree with you. I think where the transparency issue has come up is that people were pretty enthusiastic about these huddle spaces, as long as there was transparency between, a teacher takes a subset of kids and has said, go over there and do this. They want some transparency there. But the level of transparency, obviously you take pictures of the glass, right? It doesn't all necessarily look like that, but I hear you.
Thanks.
I do have another question on the third page of photos, on the flexible spaces.
Yep.
Because I think you know enough that I'm going to be very obvious, or I'm not hiding how I feel about some of this stuff. And when I was looking at some of the photos before at the forums, and I'm thinking there's all these big spaces in these places you're showing us, and I'm picturing heating the Salem High Library, or having car races in the corridors.
Right.
That the city has dealt with since the 70s.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the Belmont or wherever you were showing, and again, there were these big spaces, and I'm still seeing them, so I'm looking on like on flexible spaces.
You're talking about this page that has the sort of indoor-outdoor room?
Yeah,
Yep.
in the square footage, it's just the building, right? It's not the grounds. I mean, this,
That's true. Yeah.
so,
I think, let me say where I think this one is applicable, is that, the reason I thought this image was a good one for this discussion tonight. We know that there are a number of CTE spaces that have to be located on the ground floor because they want to be able to go in and out, to open up a door or a space and be able to sort of either move things in and out or take an activity outside. So this space does not look like that to me, because I think it sort of
because of
looks
the
like a
gigantic
standard
curve there.
classroom. But I think it's a good stand-in for this notion that a certain specific group, and I want to say there are about 4 of these programs, so welding, carpentry, electrical, these are all spaces that would benefit from the ability to open up a big door and go outside and do work, to move an activity outside.
Well, I just want to also say too, and from a communication standpoint, Chris O'Donnell and the superintendent and I met recently about how we need to sort of double down a little bit about communicating out better to both this body and to the community. So like, it's, and I only know this from sitting on the committee, like, there are entire groups on the committee, because committee's big. How many people are on it? Over, like, we're looking
Well,
at
I mean, there's about,
25 people?
yeah, there's about 25.
So in addition to like, the Perkins and Will told us that they've never seen a community that had this many like qualified people sitting on their building committees. So
Me either.
yeah, so folks know what they're doing, but so it's like you have got a whole subset of people whose professional specialty is, efficiency and environmental responsibility. In addition, the firm has an entire team of people who also do that. So it's like we're getting, because we're not on the design committee, we're getting the overview from here, but it's like, I would just urge my colleagues on the committee to trust the process, because every single one of these things that we all care deeply about is addressed every single meeting, whether it's transportation or sustainability. We talk a lot about the impact on the city, because that building is a huge drain, and how we're going to, the point is to become net zero, which is a term I did not know before I was on this committee. So it's hard to say to everybody who's, we represent the whole city, but like, we do have to trust the process. This stuff there's a lot of very well-qualified people who are constantly asking these questions. So by the time it gets to us on school committee, it's been answered 6 times already. Like, we have to trust that folks are exercising their professional due diligence, because they are.
I would just point out that I think our due diligence is to make sure that we're fact-checking the process. I understand there are qualified people on the building committee. I've been on building committees. But I also understand that that can take on a life of its own. And for some of us who have worked in schools and know what school needs for a long time, then we would be wrong not to ask questions, to just trust that the process has taken place. I don't think is what we should do, unless, as you say, we start getting more communication from the building committee. But to just say trust the process because these people know what they do, the only things I'm seeing from them are the pictures of the Belmonts and the whatevers that have the big open spaces, like some of these are still showing. And being on the other side of the fence, I know people in the schools are going to say, yeah, we want that, we need that, that's good. And I get it, and and it's most of that stuff is good, but I still think our job is to make sure that it's the school committee, and then ultimately the city, the people in the city, paying this percentage of the bill that the MSBA isn't going to pay. So if we're not checking and questioning things and looking at and to just say relax and trust. I can't do that on something like this.
I also just want to push back a little bit and remind you that, I'm sorry, Mayor, can I?
Cornell.
Thank you. The mayor and the superintendent and I are all on this committee, but when we're talking about the taxpayers who are paying the bill, that is who is on this committee. So we've got teachers.
22 of them.
We've got teachers, we've got a lot of community members, we have students, so I'm not saying don't ask questions, like that would be crazy. None of us should just sit back and never ask a question. But I do think there are some things that, like, the mayor put this committee together with the superintendent. I think that we have to trust our neighbors and our teachers who are on that committee, and me and the mayor and the superintendent, that we're doing our jobs. So that was the only point. I think it's fine to ask. Obviously, we should ask whatever we want, but I'm on the committee.
I just have one last comment. I just want one answer. I know that, but I think it was quite a while ago that I requested that a report from the building committee be put on our agenda every meeting. And the reports that we're getting are when Margaret shows up, when folks from I don't know, whatever the name is.
Perkins and Will.
Yeah. Are here to bring all this stuff and the regular ongoing, which might be reassuring reports from the committee, is not the same, and we're not seeing those. So Margaret's here now, and here's my chance to ask questions. Yet every time there's a meeting, that item is on the agenda. So I want to trust the committee, but I don't know I don't hear much from the committee. So,
It is also recorded every single time we have a meeting. So I just have to continue to say that. It's available on SATV to all community members. Every single one is available. So I just want to reiterate that, not for you personally, but for everyone, that we can all keep up with what's happening at every single meeting.
yeah, but you're our representative. And I don't want to look at the whole meeting on TV. I want my school committee representative to bring me up to date on what's going on at these meetings.
Member Cruz?
I'm just going to jump in on decorum. We're a deliberate body. We have a member request for just regular updates on the agenda. I think that's a petition coming from a member, so if we could just include that, and then I think we can defer to the superintendent to make sure that we're getting reports that are both, I think, what's happening here today, which, Margaret, we always appreciate when you come to the meetings, but some sampling of just written stuff I know folks process in different ways on the committee. So that's in line with other processes that we've had in the district in the past with, these concurrent processes that roll up to the school committee. So, that's just how I would say we should follow up, just to make sure that folks are at a place of comfort moving forward with just, what's coming out of these types of reports. So that way we can do some more work on the back ends.
I think one of the things that's important for all of us, committee, myself, is to do some visits to schools, because I do think that is an opportunity with the designer to give feedback. Like, for me, I'm just going to speak for myself. It's hard to look at pictures and look at these. I mean, I'm kind of sick of looking at all these numbers on this big thing. But I do think it's Mary, I think it's important that whoever's interested, that we go see some schools and we can give feedback to the designers about the kinds of things we want to see and don't want to see. I think that's an opportunity for the school committee to have their handprints on this project. And that's something that's only afforded to members of the committee. Members of Glenn staff will do their own visits. But I think, I haven't been to one of these schools
Yeah,
yet.
it hasn't been afforded to us. And
Well-
they're already passing votes on things that are decisions.
I'll let Margaret speak to that.
And we have not been on one visit. I have never said I wouldn't go on a visit to a school. I'm waiting to
But
go.
I think that's the stage we're in right now.
But,
Yeah,
well,
so-
I'm not thrilled to go look at other auditoriums if they've already voted on us. What's the point? Why go look at auditoriums? Take me to something they haven't voted on maybe, but seems a little behind the 8 ball to be going to look at auditoriums now when a committee of Salem citizens on this building committee, and Wilkes and whatever, Wills and something, I can't remember that name.
That's
sorry,
right.
have made their decision on what the auditorium's going to be like.
Okay, so a couple things. So first of all, I hate listening to meeting recordings too, but we are taking really good meeting minutes that include images of all the stuff that's being shown, and you all should, I will make a point of making sure that when we are circulating the meeting minutes to the building committee for their vote, that you get a chance to see them too. I mean, I think if we do that, for those of you that it's easier to scroll through something than listen to a 2-hour meeting, which is what these meetings are, that is dead easy. And we're going to be meeting at least every month, and probably in the next few months, almost every 2 weeks. So that will be an opportunity to do that. I think I would definitely call the auditorium decision made in terms of square footage, but these auditorium that are available for you to see are significantly different in other aspects of what they're connected to, what they're adjacent to, how they fit in the building, and the question of the black box is still on the table. We have kept it in the program. We are definitely interested in feedback. So it is the perfect time to go and look at schools, because I think this is an opportunity, now that we've done this due diligence part, to get feedback on what that means, what that looks like. And the space summary is subject to change, but I think it would have to be something where everybody would come together and say, well, we really want to change this. So we do want to get the visits done soon.
Other questions? Member Campbell?
I was just going to flag, though, I appreciate you offering to send them around. The minutes are posted on the website, though. It's been really helpful for me personally to review them because I also don't want to watch every single committee meeting. We have a lot of them, but I know you guys are doing a tremendous amount of work to organize that site and put them up there. And so they are there to be reviewed.
Comrade
Whoever's
Chris.
doing that, somebody thank you. And I do also appreciate the updates that we get pretty regularly from BA. So I think the degree to which you want to be involved is available, but I think the circulation of the minutes would be helpful so we're not digging.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll do that.
Any other comments or questions around the space summary or presentation? I just had a couple of questions about items in the space summary that
Yep.
might prompt some questions. Under the Chapter 74 programs, the daycare, which is existing at 4,500 square feet and does not appear under the new construction section.
So, do you want to talk about that?
Well, we were going to keep one classroom in, for the day. We weren't going to build the building for a full daycare. I mean, we weren't going to put the space in for a full daycare. We were going to have just one classroom for the CTE program to utilize. If we wanted to look at a full, I mean, we're fortunate now to have the space to accommodate a larger scale, but we didn't want to use all our square footage on building for preschool students.
If a new building option is chosen.
Yeah, if a new build, thank you for
Right.
clarifying that. And we also have options for preschool classrooms at Horace Mann that is on the same campus, which affords our students the opportunity to walk literally out the door, just across the way, to access those programs if they want to, participate in internships and so forth. So that's why we wanted to maintain at least one classroom space, but not have a full preschool in the high school building.
So my other question is related to the district storage space. I know we've talked
Yes.
about that before, but that's another.
Yeah, so for those of you that, we use the high school building right now for a lot of district storage. And so that has come up in multiple conversations about what we're going to do with, we have all our outdoor equipment for our grounds crew there. We have a lot of our food distribution is out of there. We have a lot of our custodial supplies out of there. So I think, Margaret, it's safe to say we're looking at different options and there's some discussion about, do we keep the automotive center as a storage facility of some kind there? And so I think that Perkins and Will are looking at the possibilities of that. I don't know if you want to say more, because we're just concerned about making sure we have enough space across the district for the supplies, for the storage that we currently utilize at Salem High.
So, I mean, this is the MSBA, back to the, how they use the space template to establish equity. They reimburse on a pittance of what most schools need, elementary, middle, or high school. This is a situation where the existing high school has a lot of space. So there is a huge gap, and I'm talking about 9,000 square foot difference between what Z uses and needs and what the MSBA template would reimburse on. So it was a late breaking idea in the process that we might keep the Salerno Center. And actually, I will say it was Z's idea initially, but we all looked at it and thought it was a great idea. Keep the Salerno Center. So if you look at the options, if, like Amanda, you were looking at the minutes from the last meeting, you would not see the Salerno Center on the site plans yet because it came up so late. But that's, as the design team moves forward into the next phase, they're going to be looking at that, because then we don't have to build that space for them. We get to build the CTE space that we need, and the Salerno Center becomes something else.
So as a late-breaking item, are you looking to bring the automotive programs that are based in the Salerno Center right now into the new building?
Yes. Yeah. And that's where, back to my question about the roll-up doors, that was why I put that example in, was you will have spaces in this building like automotive, I think like welding, probably like carpentry, where you're going to want to be able to roll up a door and be able to operate inside, outside.
Any other comments or questions? I just want to note that the principal's office is going from 510 square feet to 375, so. It's right size, that's what the MSBA says.
A lot of wasted
It's the
space in that.
guidelines.
There's too much Buffalo Bill stuff in that office.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Thanks, Margaret. So sticking on MSBA, there are two aspects of the MSBA program that we participate in. One is the core project, which we're very fortunate to have this large core project, which is the Salem High School project. But there's also the opportunity to take advantage of accelerated repairs, which nothing precludes a district from participating in both. And we're going to take full advantage of the opportunity to participate in both to upgrade our other facilities. And so there's an item on here, we do need a vote, hopefully a vote from the school committee to support an application for 2 accelerated repair projects, which Lisa Golden is going to share. Or Elizabeth, maybe you were supposed to do that introduction, so.
Nope, you did it perfectly.
Okay. So thank you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. So last year, we had the opportunity to go into the 2024 statement of interest period for the accelerated repair program, and we came last year with a statement of interest for Bates for the roof. That has moved on and is now, this year, gone into the feasibility study most recently. This year, they recently just opened the statement of interest consideration period for 2025. And so working with the city and working on the school end, we are submitting statements of interest, and it's in your packet, the drafts of the statement of interest for Carlton and for Horace Mann. And this would be the opportunity for the roof and the HVAC systems for both schools. So that's what you're going to see in your packet. Both schools, the descriptions are in there for you. Basically, the roofs are, in both schools, are over 23 years old and way past the time that they should have been replaced by now. And the HVAC systems need to be also updated, and in our effort as the city to decarbonize, a new word for me since taking over, coming into these, lots of words about boilers, HVAC, rooftop systems. So that's all outlined, and basically the SOI submission, which basically is saying the superintendent has permission from this body to submit the statements of interest on behalf of Horace Mann and Carlton. Is that a City Council already worked on it last week.
Approved it last week.
They did their part last week.
Any questions?
Any
So we're looking
questions?
for a motion to,
Yeah, we'll do it under
The
motions.
voting
and
language is
resolutions.
in
oh,
there.
okay, I'm sorry, yeah.
And
Sorry.
this does have a deadline, right?
Yes, it
Application
does.
deadline.
The deadline, which is why we're here tonight, is everything has to be submitted on Friday, March 21st.
All right. No questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't know what happened.
What happened to your microphone?
My microphone,
It's right here.
yeah, Shirley. I'm gonna need some assistance. I'm not blaming you, Shirley, but
Or Shirley
together, Shirley, we're gonna fix this microphone. Shirley fixes it all. All right, so my goals for this upcoming school year, were not in your packet, but I provided them to you by email, and then you have a hard copy. I just want to quickly run through them so you have them, and I would like to put this on the table. We don't need to vote on it tonight, but so it gives you a chance to look at it and give me your feedback. I feel very strongly that my first goal around student learning for this upcoming year should be around developing an explicit early literacy strategy for K-3 that supports evidence-based, culturally and linguistically sustaining practices to improve rates of literacy proficiency. As you know, we've invested a lot in our preschool programs. We have access to the CPPI grant. A lot of work has gone into strengthening our preschool and pre-kindergarten programs. I do think we have a lot of work still to do as a system in grades K-2. Our students are coming more and more prepared to kindergarten, and we are seeing some stagnation and flatlining of performance and achievement. And that is through no fault of anyone's, other than I think we need to be more explicit about what our strategy is, the supports we provide, the coaching. We recently were awarded the PRISM grant, which is the Partnership for Reading Success through the Department of Education. And we want to make sure that I think we've focused quite a bit on the MCAS grades and not necessarily provided enough support in K-2. And so that's the work that I want to be held accountable for in the upcoming year. We, as a team, our academics team, led by Dr. Talbot, this is an area that we're all keying in on in the, for the upcoming school year. And I would like to make sure that not only are we strengthening the Tier 1 instruction there, but the systems of support, the multi-tiered systems of support for K-2. The research across the state, or the data across the state, is not strong for post-pandemic recovery, especially in literacy. And in the state of Massachusetts, Massachusetts does lag behind a lot of other districts, and I want to make sure Salem is able to accelerate outcomes for kids, and that we're making sure that more and more kids are reading and writing proficiently by grade 3. That is also obviously inclusive of our dual language program, and certainly looking at outcomes for students who are learning, who are developing literacy in both English and Spanish in the Salem Public Schools. So that's my first goal, student learning goal. The second goal, professional growth, is, as I mentioned before, we have a lot happening in around recruitment and retention of a diverse workforce, except it is very scattered right now. And it is a part of the strategic plan that I think needs to be strengthened. It's not for the lack of people's hard work. We have a lot of things going on, but it's not as coordinated and as organized as it needs to be in order for us to promote what we offer, advertise what we offer, help our staff understand that if I'm a student who wants to be an educator, if I'm a non-bachelor's, if I don't have my bachelor's but I want to be a teacher, here's the options for me. If I have my bachelor's and I want to be a teacher, here are the options that for me. I think while we've made a lot of gains in the diversification of our staff, we could be accelerating that work if we were able to get more organized around the different pathways. We are partnering with the Salem Teachers Union, partnering with the Dominican Republic. We're doing a lot of stuff, but it's nowhere in a place that people can understand and comprehend clearly, and especially the people who we intend to impact, which are our own staff, residents of Salem who want to come work in our schools. So that's something I want to commit to getting clearer, more explicit, and making sure that we're clear as an organization who owns. Obviously we had a recruiter that was going to be their work. That job went away when with ESSER funds. It never really materialized, but we have to organize ourselves in a way that makes sure this work moves forward, because 20% teachers of color is not enough for a district that has 65% students of color. Additionally, our administrative staff still is also not reflective of our student population. That's our school leadership, team chairs, assistant principals, and then our executive team and department heads still needs to look more like the students that we serve. So this is a comprehensive effort. You'll see my actions related to that work. Finally, the last goal really doesn't change. The district goal is really about implementing progress towards our strategic priorities. Our strategic plan goes into year 3, so the expectation, or you should expect from me, that we continue to move forward around the outcomes and the priorities laid out in the strategic plan. We do need to start thinking about the next iteration of the plan. That will happen sometime next school year as we plan for what's next. It was a 3-year plan. It ends at the end of the 25-26 school year. And so, again, I want to be held accountable for the outcomes that are in that plan, which I have tried to report on, or which I have reported on every year, and now we have a public dashboard that reports out on how we're doing relative to those goals, right? So those are the 3 goals that I would like you to hold me accountable for. I'm obviously open to any feedback that you might have around aspects of this, but I think these represent real core buckets of work for us as a system as we get, more we become more focused on aspects. Now I'm starting to get more focused on aspects of the strategic plan that I think are lagging behind other parts of it. And so that's why early literacy work, our early literacy strategy, our recruitment and retention of our staff of color, and finally, the overall implementation of the plan are my goals for the upcoming school year. So that's on the table, Mayor, and I would hope that we can take a vote on that at the next school committee meeting.
Yeah, I'll just mention that it's listed on the agenda for a vote tonight, but we are going to wait till the next meeting so folks have time to review this and talk to the superintendent directly if you'd like. Member Campbell.
Just one suggestion, if
Of
you're
course.
interested. I love that you talked a lot about both English and Spanish literacy, and I love that it's language agnostic. My recommendation would be perhaps to put both into the goals so that it's even more clear, because I'm very excited to hear you talk about it. I think it's so important for recognition of the fact that we have programs that are developing both. And so explicitly calling it out, I think, really helps make sure that it does, in fact, get measured and
Yep.
evaluated on.
So that's exactly the kind of feedback I would want to receive. So thank you, and I will make sure I make those edits and bring it back to the next meeting.
Member Cruz.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Reich, for putting these together, the basis for the plan, and certainly happy to get you some more feedback. I think on bucket number 2,
Yep.
just with respect to the goals around diversification opportunities, I think in large part, thanks to the work that you and I have done in the state, we did pass the Educator Diversity Act.
Yep.
And so I think as you talk about a clear plan, the legislation calls for a 3-year strategic plan on recruiting a diverse educator workforce. So I think as part of your evidence, it would be the submission
Oh, okay.
of that
Yep.
particular plan.
Yep.
And then the other component of that, Bill, as you'll recall, is that we're required to set up some type of diversity advisory council, but it's an educator diversity advisory council to the superintendent and the school committee. That's made up of folks within in the district, and those are the folks that are actually charged with developing the plan. So I would just name those 2 facets of the new state law. I know that certain pieces haven't gone into effect yet, but it may just be worth engaging with folks at DESE just to get a sense of what they think the parameters for those 2 things will look like, and then to think about those in bucket number 2 and how that aligns to the goals that you've laid out as part of the plan.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with us being on the leading edge of that, Manny, before we're required to do it.
I think we are on the leading edge, so that's
Appreciate
the
it.
benefit of being here in Salem, and we're ahead of the state, by the way, when it comes to educator diversification by almost double. So I think your goal here of getting to above 20% for our teachers is pretty significant, given the minimal gains that we see across the state. So thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions, feedback? If not,
That
You go to
closes my, well, we have finance and operations report.
Just a note to say that we are not bringing budget transfers this evening for FY25. We are still working to finalize the budget transfers that will allow us to finish the year in balance. So those are coming, but we are still working on those, and I do not have them tonight.
All right, that closes
Okay.
my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
any subcommittee reports? Member Manning?
Yeah, I don't actually have specifics. I just wanted to take a minute to explain a little bit different process this year, because, I think everyone's aware it's budget development season, and, folks throughout the city are aware. And normally, the past few years, we had set up a system where the finance subcommittee asked each one of the principals and directors to come in and talk to us about, what their hope was for the coming budget season, and to be able to share any particular information they thought we should know. We could ask questions. We didn't do that this year. I think that Dr. Zreik and Kate and Elizabeth were wise in asking maybe that we set it up a little bit differently, and those folks talk to the people in the schools. which they would have done ahead of us anyway, but there was really, we weren't in a situation where anybody really should be asking anybody else what they'd like to get or add or whatever. That just wasn't a way to go, and it didn't make sense this year. So rather than be mean and raise false hopes and waste people's time, et cetera, we instead, we've heard from the folks in central office who have done the work with the principals and directors. We each met with people to discuss those, and we've had the opportunity. For example, I'm meeting Wednesday with Kate and Elizabeth and one of the directors because I had some concerns about specific items in that budget. So we're doing it this way this year. So it hasn't been the same as other years where there have been meetings to report on. But I didn't want people to think that there was nothing happening from the school committee side because the three of us have been involved. It's just been a different process this year. So I just thought it was maybe time to explain that.
Any other committees? All right. Under motions and resolutions, we're postponing superintendent's goals to the next meeting. Our first item is a approval of a 3-year contract for July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2027 with Deputy Superintendent Kate Carboni.
Make a motion to approve the 3-year contract for Deputy Superintendent Kate Carboni for valid through July 1st, 2024 through June 30, 2027.
Second.
Motion made by Member Cruz, seconded by Member Manning. Under discussion?
Mayor.
Member Cruz?
So just, I think similar to the process that we went through with Assistant Superintendent Polly, we've been at the negotiating table with the Deputy Superintendent around the contract. So I think as folks will see, it's a 3-year contract, which is the standard. And then in terms of things like compensation, it's all tied to the rubrics and the formulas that come out of DESE. So following a superintendent evaluation, that would determine any annual raises to the base salary. And then I would just note for members of the public that might be watching at home that this does include a 4% increase in the deputy superintendent's salary. And I did want to say a few things about Kate, because Kate, you have been a tremendous partner for us here in the district. Many of the achievements that we've been able to see in terms of what our students are learning, how they've recovered from the pandemic, the great work that we were able to do in collaboration with our union partners. You're at the center of a lot of that work, and I know Steve often will give you your flowers, but I'll just say for my part as a committee member, I've gotten to work with you over the last 8 years, and it's been a tremendous privilege. You always center the kids, and you really do uplift our teams, and you set high expectations for both the adults and the students that we have in our classrooms. And I think that your years of experience have been a tremendous benefit for the children and families of Salem. So I'm planning on voting in favor of this contract, but first and foremost, I just wanted to thank you for continuing to choose Salem. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you very much.
No further comments or questions?
I do have to say, like everything he said, except I was going to say something similar, but I wasn't going to say the uplifting part. But now that he mentions that, I think you're very uplifting. So I'm glad he threw that in. Good job. I'll vote for uplifting.
All right. No further questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? Seeing none, the matter carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Hey, back to work.
The next item is a motion to acknowledge that this committee has received the educational plan and space summary for the Salem High School project. This is not a vote to approve that plan. This is an acknowledgement that the MSBA requires that to demonstrate that the committee has received it and is reviewing it. So is there such a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, motion made by Member Cruz and seconded by Member Campbell. Under discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? The matter carries. We'll do these two separately. This is authorizing the superintendent to submit a statement of interest form to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for the Carleton Innovation School at 10 Scary Street in Salem.
I move to authorize the superintendent to submit to the MSBA the statement of interest for the Carleton Innovation School located at 10 Scary Street, Salem, Mass, as submitted.
Do we have to read the full resolution?
I'm pretty sure we do, yeah.
Oh, my God, okay.
What? We always have to read the full resolution on an MSBA submission.
Because they might be watching.
Better we get it in on
Okay,
time.
yeah, I know.
We don't have time. It's due Friday.
All right, everyone.
Start
Pull
reading.
up a chair. Resolved, having convened an open meeting of March 17th, 2025, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the School Committee of Salem, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated March 21st, 2025, for the Carleton Innovation School located at 10 Scary Street, Salem, Massachusetts, 01970, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heaters, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, priority 5. The HVAC system at the Carleton Innovation School consists of 2 gas-fired boilers, 1 chiller, 6 rooftop units, and multiple unit ventilators throughout the building. These units are all beyond their useful life, are failing, and in need of replacement. The roof is over 23 years old, in poor condition with multiple holes and failing patches causing leaks into the building, and is overdue for replacement. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the City of Salem to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. All in favor?
We have a
Second?
Oh, it's second. That was the second.
That
Okay.
was the
Now
second.
you have to reread it.
Do I? Just to be safe.
Roll
we
call.
should- Is this a roll call vote?
Yes, yes,
Isn't it fun to have around?
Who invited
it
you?
is.
Out of here. Okay.
I kind of make the
Roll call vote. Member Manning.
Yes.
Member Cruz.
yes.
Member Miranda.
Yes.
Member Cornell.
Yes.
Member Campbell.
Yes.
Myself, yes. The matter carries. Now what? Do I have to do it again?
Now we make
Yes.
another motion, right, for the other one.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm going to it.
For it.
Yeah.
There he goes.
Someone want to just tee it up?
It's no
I was going to joke that I don't make those laws, but I do. So.
I got all night.
Oh, this one's longer. Who wrote this? Is there a motion to authorize the super? Yes, Member Cruz.
I move to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form for the Horseman Lab School located at 79 Wilson Street, Salem, Mass.
I'll second.
Motion made by Member Cruz, seconded by Member Miranda.
I'll time you, see how fast
Please
you can
do.
go.
This is the Micro Machine Man. Resolved. Having convened an open meeting on March 17th, 2025, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the School Committee of Salem, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated March 21st, 2025, for the Horseman Laboratory School, 79 Wilson Street, Salem, Massachusetts, 01970, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in school facility, priority 5. The HVAC system at the Horseman Laboratory School includes 2 gas-fired boilers, 1 chiller, 11 rooftop units, and multiple unit ventilators throughout the building. Both boilers have had extensive repairs, and all rooftop digital display screens are obsolete McKay rooftop units. The roof at the Horseman Laboratory School is over 23 years old and is in very poor condition. There are multiple areas of wet insulation, which is noticeably spongy and soft when walking on the roof. Replacement is of the highest priority due to numerous roof leaks. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, The Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the City of Salem to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Member Manning?
Yes.
Member Cruz?
Yes.
Member Miranda?
Yes.
Member Cornell?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Matter carries. We have third reading of policy 5215.01, Directory of Information on Students.
Motion to approve for a third reading.
Seconded.
Motion made by Member Cornell, seconded by Member Campbell. All in favor?
Discussion.
Under discussion. Seeing none. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the matter carries. Announcements. Member Cruz?
I just wanted to note that on, I believe it is March 28th, the City of Salem will be hosting its Women's History Month celebration and recognition ceremony at 401 Bridge Street, Salem, Massachusetts, at the Community Life Center from 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. I know the mayor will be presiding over the event. There's a lot of great folks from around the city that have been nominated for recognition, and just wanted to let the public know about it here.
Any other announcements from members? Seeing none, is there another motion?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made by Member Campbell, seconded by Member Miranda. Under discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.